Yes.
Book by Mark Pantoja.
Woo!
I didn't actually see the bull come out of the water. I was in the Jeep filling out chain of custody forms for the samples Piper was collecting from the little lake. Allie was snoring softly behind the steering wheel. Mary and Lex were in the other Jeep on the far side of the little blackened hill, past the lake, making sure nothing flanked us. Sandy was 10, maybe 20 yards from the water, automatic rifle resting on her hip, keeping an eye for Xenos. That's when Piper started screaming. By the time I looked up, Piper was already tangled in the bull's feeding branches. It stood 2 stories high against the dusk sky, water pouring through its black-skinned tubular body, down its piston legs. Piper fired wild, the air, the ground, the beast, the Jeep. I jumped from the passenger seat, clear of his fire, and was struck by the stench of rotten eggs wafting from the bull as it barreled down on the Jeep. The world spun, and everything went dull, muted. I heard muffled thumps and looked up at the creature speeding over me. I don't remember falling. I thought about shooting, but everything was so heavy. For a moment, all was calm, and I remembered, when you stop smelling them, you're being poisoned. I grabbed the breather at my belt and took a deep drag of oxygen. Sound rushed back, yelling, the other Jeep engine roaring, the bull's horn blast dwindling. Sandy yanked me to my feet. "Where's Allie?" she screamed in my face. "What? Allie, where is she?" But the Jeep wasn't there. It lay 100 feet away on its side, white paint smeared with black, sooty mud, tossed aside by the beast. My senses returned and I followed Sandy to the crumpled Jeep where Allie hung half out of the vehicle, tangled in her seatbelt, twisted like a rag around the lip of the door. Sandy gingerly cradled Allie's head. The beast blew its horn, a thick, dull note. When it crested the blackened hill, I think I saw Piper against the evening sky. He'd just been getting a few water samples. It'd been my turn, but I was being lazy and made him do it. Could have been me in those branches. Should have been me. The beast was gone, but what if there was another one in the water? I cradled my rifle, hands slick with fear. "Doc!" Sandy yelled at me. "Help me!" She was trying to pull Allie from the wreck. Allie was broken, blood and bones poking out from her fatigues, but she breathed, ragged but consistent. Her eyes fluttered, and she moaned. She mumbled a name, I think, Dan. That was her husband's name, from before. "Shh, baby," Sandy said, trying to get a better angle to lift her out. She pulled a knife from her pack and cut the seatbelt. Allie gasped and bit down with an audible chomp. My stomach rolled, and every time I swallowed, my throat would catch. Allie started jerking, bucking, and then stopped just as quick. Her eyes glazed over. "Doc," Sandy said, "climb up top and lift her shoulders." "Doc!" I took a quick look back at the lake to see if the sloshing waves would reveal another Xeno bowl. Nothing. I turned and climbed atop the fallen Jeep, but kept glancing back at the water. Lex and Miri came around in the other Jeep. It took us about 10 minutes to get Allie out. By then she was cold, unmoving. I felt for a pulse, but found none. I'm not that kind of doctor anyway. I'm not even a doctor at all. I just got the name because I work for ecology. Sandy tried mouth to mouth. She beat on Allie's chest for a full minute until blood bubbled from her lips, but she was gone. Sandy stopped. We stood over the body, staring. No one spoke. I barely knew Allie, not well enough to cry. I'd cried enough for others I lost. For a stranger like Allie, I just felt, well, glad I got out of the Jeep. And giddy almost that I'd been that close to a bull. They were horrible creatures, but gorgeous in a way. It was hard not to admire them a little bit. They'd been carved by evolution into a perfect infectious life form, hopping from planet to planet and outcompeting native life. "Lex, Miri," Sandy said, "salvage what you can from the Jeep. Gas, ammo, water, anything. Doc and I will bury her." "Bury her?" Miri said. "Why aren't we taking her back with us?" "We're not going back," Sandy said. "We're gonna kill that fucker." We had enough gas to chase the bull for a day, maybe two, then we'd have to beeline it back to the southernmost fuel depot, 500 miles from here. The less fuel we had, less distance we could afford around the cities, which the Xenos flocked to like a coral reef. It took us a day and a half to get out here, through the few compounds outside the emergency authority, to the contaminant zone where Xeno life reigned. The Xenos came crawling out of the oceans after the asteroids hit 6 years ago, infecting the seas and then the land. Herds of exotic extraterrestrial life inhabited the coasts and started out across the continental US. The emergency authority had lost contact with Hawaii 2 years ago. Satellite photos revealed islands covered in huge black leathery xenolife leaves, some kind of xenoflora. Though such categorizations aren't really applicable to the Xenos since they seem to switch back and forth between plants, animals, and life models we've never even seen before. Each year it got worse. The xenolife pumped oxygen-rich spores out from the oceans, and the spores rode seasonal winds, where they turned seasonal wildfires into conflagrations, clearing the land for xenofauna to sweep through, filling vacated ecological niches. All the while, aquatic xenos cultivated hydrogen from the waters and produced hydrogen sulfide gas, which oxidized and turned into sulfuric acid, which poisoned our lands with acid rain. At first, aliens dominated the equatorial band, feeding off the heat and sunlight, but they adapted and crept north, like those glycol-blooded antifreeze xenobeetles. The photovoltaic bowls moved slow at night, saving energy until daylight. That was probably what it was doing in the lake, insulating itself until dawn. During daylight, bowls moved pretty quick, covering up to 100 miles a day. I found one of Piper's spent shells while we were packing up. Besides his signature on the chain of custody forms, that's all there is left of him. I placed the shell on top of Allie's grave. 2 less humans on Earth, and all to show was a broken body and empty brass. But I couldn't dwell. If I started feeling things now, I don't know if I could hold it all back. I don't know if I would start blubbering or pick up my rifle and end it all. I sprinkled some soot on the shell and grave. We traveled through the night. Sandy was determined to stay on the beast trail, and I wasn't about to argue. It was a tight fit with 4 of us in the gear. I shared the back seat with Miri and the recoilless, the shoulder-firing anti-tank, now anti-bowl rifle. We stopped only for piss breaks and to check the bull's trail. Being the resident xenobiologist, I inspected our buck's tracks. That's what Sandy started calling it, buck, or our buck. I don't really know what I was looking for. Sandy was much better at tracking, but at least I felt like I was contributing. Jesus, Sandy said, squatting down in front of the Jeep, examining the spore I found in the breaking sun. Bulls don't eat much, living mostly off solar energy. They mulch everything they scoop in their feeding branches, using a bit for growth and the rest for shit flowers, which is what we found sticking out of one of Piper's tennis shoes Buck had shat out. I poked at the shit flower and it shied away, bending its stalk and closing up its blossom. The black-red petals had a fleshy feel to them. I could smell its fragrance, rotten eggs, hydrogen sulfide, toxic to earth life. The shit flowers were pumping it out, and the contaminant zone was littered with them. Atmospheric processors, I said. That's what they are. I know, Sandy said. She stood up and stomped the flower and shoe. Black ichor oozed out from under her boot. Monsters. Nocturnal xenos are attracted to lights, so we parked for the night and were about to set up camp when the air was filled with a chorus of church organs. A bullpack call and response, meaning bulls, close. We broke out the soft glow sticks and dug out the recoilless, ammo, and some protein bars. Bulls and other large xenofauna, especially Z-cats, are attracted to light, even though they lack true eyes, and sense light with their skin. This is what led them to attacking cities, houses, and cars when they first emerged from the waters. The glow sticks were a dim blue wavelength the aliens couldn't sense over a few feet away, but they were ample enough for us to prep. I watched Miri and Lex field strip the recoilless, then sat down against the Jeep's tire to check my ammo. I must have dozed off, because when I woke, Sandy and Lex were gone and Miri was sitting on one of the sample coolers, smoking a cig and rooting through a box of protein bars. She caught my eyes. "You're hardcore, Doc," she said. I could almost see her eyes in the dim blue glow. "What? Sleeping before a hunt? You ain't nervous?" "I'm not sure. It's not like there's anything left they can take from me." "Ah, the nothing to lose, look death in the eye type." "You're any different?" I asked. "Never said I was." She took a drag from the cig. "Takes a special type to survive out here." "Rats or lions," I said. "What now?" "Nothing." I waved her off. "She's going to get us all killed." "Sandy?" Miri asked with a laugh. "Maybe, but we've done this 100 times. 100, really. Stop worrying. All you have to do is shoot the monsters. And don't shoot Sandy. She will kill you." The radio at Miri's belt squelched once. We both looked at it. "What does one squelch mean?" I asked. "Are they up on the—" "Shh!" Miri stood up and looked into the darkness at the top of the hill. She grabbed the walkie. "Sandy, Lex, you there? Over." The radio was silent. I looked away from the glow stick, trying to keep my eyes dark adjusted. How long have they been up there? Doc! Shh! Sandy, Lex, are you there? Over. She paused for a beat. We heard a squelch. Over. Their walkies are turned down. One of them probably rolled over on horns sounded from the ridge, and the darkness was broken by a flash from the recoilless, burning into my eyes. I remember the briefest gap before the rifle's thunder arrived. Miri was already in the Jeep, hitting the headlights and kicking on the engine. I jumped into the passenger seat and she gunned up the hill, swerving around stumps. In the dark, I could see a ghost of the recoilless flash. The headlights only revealed blackened earth. Then I saw more flashes off to the left and heard rifle reports. I felt something between nausea and excitement. The headlights glinted off the joints of a bull spread out on the ground at the top of the ridge. Miri slammed on the brakes. The ruined xenofauna lay in the headlights. It was massive, even spread flat against the ground. It twitched everywhere, pipes dilating, sacs filling and deflating, twisting and pumping. Sandy or Lex had shot it through the hindquarters, pulverizing its back half, leaving pipes and muscle in tatters. I slipped out of the passenger seat while Miri kept the Jeep running. It might have been Buck or one of the smaller bulls, but all spread out, it was hard to tell. Shoot it, Doc! Wait, I said. I heard a moan and grabbed the flashlight at my belt. The recoilless lay on the ground next to the creature. Its body reached for the light wherever it landed on skin. A bull called from the valley. I heard another moan and caught Lex in the light, twisted and run through in a cage of feeding branches. He bled from his mouth, ears, nose, throat, chest. Everywhere a branch stabbed through him. What is it? Miri asked. I turned to her. But she was looking at me. Not behind her. Not at Buck towering over the little vehicle. Breather! I screamed, grabbing mine. The bull blasted out hydrogen sulfide. I could smell the wet stink before I strapped my breather on. Miri slumped behind the wheel, breather dangling from her fingers. Buck rose up higher, raising its forward-pisting legs, smashing them down onto the Jeep again and again, crushing the roll bar and Miri. I turned off my flashlight and stood still. Buck didn't notice me, distracted by the Jeep's lights. I moved closer to the recoilless. When it was at my feet, I eased down while Buck continued to pulverize the Jeep. The rear bolt was in the loaded position, but I could only trust it was chambered. I stood up and hoisted it on my shoulder, looked through the scope and saw Buck. He loomed above me like an old pitched Victorian house, sharp angles and crawling pipes against the bright points of early morning stars. I squeezed the trigger and flames shot from the barrel. The bullet hit Buck right down the middle and he was gone from the sky. I heard a faint trickling of liquid pouring out on the dry ground through the wine in my ears. The beast lay on the ground, dissipating. The bullet had spalled, breaking apart and shredding Buck down the center. He outgassed, his stench creeping through my breather. The smell was heavy and black, just an animal. I reloaded and waited for the third bull. It's out there, but hasn't come. I heard its horns all morning. Calling its fallen comrades? Reinforcements? I don't know, but I think it's circling, stalking. I sat until sunrise and watched Buck and the other bull twitch in the morning sun. I tried to pull what was left of Lex from the other bull's branches, but he was too tangled. And Miri was encased in her Jeep coffin. I looked for Sandy, but found no sign of her. I thought I heard a boom in the distance. Dynamite maybe? Maybe it was a horn blast. I walked down to where we left our food, sleeping gear, and extra gasoline. When I returned to the 2 dead humans and 2 dead bulls, the xenocarcasses had started sinking their branches into the ground, beginning the tree phase of their life cycle. They would grow high and gestate a few bull pods if I didn't take care of it. I fished out Lex lighter and poured gas over him, Miri, and the bulls. Then lit the pyre and watched the flames for a while. Is this all that's left for humanity? I wanted to cry, to scream and kick and punch the burning pile, but I didn't. I wanted to want to rage, but I found I didn't feel anything. I was just dead inside, my stomach heavy, like in the center of me there was just a lump. I'm not even afraid anymore. I can hear bull calls close by. My supplies are short and the water out here is contaminated. The Xenos will get to me before a rescue party, but I have the recoilless and about a dozen shells. Thanks, guys. So we have books for sale right over there. That was a story called Buck, like I said. That comes from the book Other Possibilities, which is a book of short stories by my partner in crime here, Mark Pantoja. Thank you. So it officially comes out tomorrow, but we have advanced copies for sale for $5.